ladies, gentlemen, and of course, the YouTube comment section. What is up? And welcome back to Shop Talk. I've got to build a bunch of boxes that are kind of, not the most interesting or fun thing in the world, so I figured I would gab at you guys while I'm doing it. So, check it out. Here at LM, I pre-make a lot of these kind of boxes that are just little problem solvers. So this one we call the DSK SM. So the SM stands for Surface Mount. I know, I'm very creative when it comes to making product names. And basically what this is it's a Decora punch, and it has a D-punch input and output. So to segue into this particular episode of Shop Talk, I just got back from a 4-day trip from Orlando, where dreams are made. So, man, I did 2 trips to Florida this month in the month of March. One in the beginning, and I just got home late last night. And it's like spring break time, man. It's wild down there. As a matter of fact, again, as foreshadowing as to what this episode of Shop Talk is going to be, I took coming from Ohio, I have to go through Pittsburgh, and I'm an avid, rabid Delta loyalist, as I'm sure many of you are also. So you gotta go to Atlanta, because of course you can't fly anything with Delta without touching Atlanta Airport. So we took a 767 from the Atlanta airport to Orlando, and then on our trip back yesterday, it was a A330 from Orlando to Atlanta, which is wild. I've only flown a wide body domestically from transcontinental when I've gone JFK to LA or JFK to San Francisco, and it's sometimes you get a wide body, which of course, me being a nerd about planes, I don't know if you guys know this or not, I'm a huge geek about planes. I'll take any opportunity I can to geek out about planes, so I'll generally pick my flight based on which plane is flying, because again, I'm a crazy person. So anyway, we were working on an install down there in Orlando, which, flying down for spring break times is insanity. So one of the things that the customer requested is they're working on a video fly pack, which, again, I'm a bit of a fish out of water when it comes to video. I'm a video daywalker. I know enough to be dangerous, but my heart is always with audio. But the more and more installs I do, the more and more video related it is. So I'm very slowly, at least from an integrated standpoint, on the dumb end of video of just running cables. I'm a video guy, I suppose. Nah, not really. Anyway, we're looking at this install. We built them a case. We did a bunch of wiring and stuff for them, and then we were down there working on another project. And one of the guys that are integrators for this particular company, that generally I always say that LM is like a dumb integrator. We do all the dumb stuff. We do cables and, infrastructure and that kind of stuff. We get it all ready for you. And then when you want to start racking gear and programming and all that kind of stuff, you take it to the next level. So the guy who is taking it from the next level that we started, we're just looking at it because we're building a couple more of these fly packs. And, I always like to put myself in the position of people who are actually using things. And I'm like, how you doing, man? He goes, it would be really cool if you could make me something that could USB power all of my HDMI to SDI converter boxes. And one of the things that we do is we have the standardized DSK SM box. So we can stick this on the wall of his rack, and I can give him this guy, which I happen to have multiples in stock, the 4-plex USB-A box. And because we already have True 1 infrastructure in the case, I can populate this guy with a True 1 inlet. But unfortunately, True 1 outlets are bigger than 15/16. They're actually 1 inch and 1/16, or 1 inch and 1/8. I can't remember. It's a little over 1 inch. So we're going to do a weird box today. We are going to do a True 1 inlet and, wait for it, PowerCon outlet. They're never going to really tap the other side of this box where it's going. It's just going to be in in the middle of a rack section between a double wide rack. But I figured some outlet, even if it's not the right gender or flavor, is still better than no output. So, what's $3? These are $3, Gotta give you something. Anyway, shop talk today. Man, it's a twofold. I was kind of thinking about doing a frequent flyer episode because one of the things that I'm really interested in... Hang on, I gotta grab a screwdriver. One of the things that I'm generally interested in is I'm kind of a huge geek about credit cards. And I'm also a huge geek about airlines and airplanes and general amounts of air travel. And I am to the point of where everybody makes fun of me relentlessly. I'm a huge, huge Delta loyalist. So I feel like a future Shop Talk episode is going to have to be what's your airline of choosing? How do you pick an airline, to if you're doing fly dates and stuff like that, which I do. I'm on a plane a lot between LM, doing LM stuff, and then also my personal audio stuff. I'm on a plane generally 2 to 3 times a month. So, it's a lot of travel. So, when you pick an airline, it starts to, we start to get status and that kind of stuff. I always find it interesting. But if you guys are interested in that, let me know. I would love to have some other fellow nerds to complain about Delta's Sky Miles 2024 update, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but a future episode. I've found that many of you in the entertainment industry are fellow fly date human beings, are Delta loyalists as well. So today's episode of Shop Talk is... what are some of the funniest things that you've ever had to carry on a plane? And I was thinking about it because we, had a lot of time, and the guy, the sales guy from LM who I was with, Ed, is a drummer also, who played in touring bands and that kind of thing, and he and I were just sort of chatting about the hilarious stuff that we've had to bring on a plane. So my one favorite thing that I've ever had to bring on a plane was I was in the Akron airport in Ohio, and this was probably 15 years ago, and I had a gig that I was playing drums on, and this particular gig required wind chimes, and the wind chimes that I always liked are TreeWorks wind chimes. Now, TreeWorks wind chimes come in a black canvas bag that is about that big, the set that I have. And me being an idiot, I just, I had a backpack, with my computer and some stuff in it. And I was just rolling through Akron Airport with my TreeWorks wind chime bag. And the people in TSA stopped me immediately. And they're like, stop! And I got rushed in the security line. They're like, we need to know what's in that bag right now. And it says TreeWorks wind chimes on the side, but me being naive, not thinking of the comparison, they're like, you're not allowed to bring firearms to this point in airport security. And I'm like, no, these are wind chimes. These are literally the most peaceful instrument on earth. They basically thought that I was rolling into security with a rifle. They're like, well, we thought that was like a shotgun or something. I'm like, no, it's just wind chimes. It's the most peaceful instrument ever. They're just wind chimes. So we all eventually had a laugh about it, and I got through security. Another one is I was doing a 3-day tour, just really quick. It was with we were playing a gig in Chicago at Lollapalooza, and then we had a couple of club dates just surrounding that. I did a bunch of videos actually previously prepping for that, but I had to bring a rack that had a mixer in it that was it was a Persona Studio Live 24 just rack mount thing, and then I had a God, what else did I have? I had the rack that had everything in it. I had I had three bags. And I think the other 2 were basically just Pelicans with cables in them. And that's what we needed to just make the gig happen. It was, it was in-ear stuff. That's what it was. I had a bunch of in-ear stuff and two different Pelicans. I had a 1510, a 1600, and then I had four-space LM rack that all the gear was in. So long story long, I was living in New York at the time, and I was flying out of JFK, and I checked my bag, or I checked the rack, I checked the 1600, and then I was carrying the 1510 on. Oh, that's what it was. I had two 1510s. One was full of cables, the other one was my work box. Duh. So the 1510, so I checked my work box because I have tools in there. I have a multi-tool in there and a screwdriver and Allen keys and that, and I just, never know what the TSA is going to think is a weapon. So I checked that. So I just had the 1510 that was just filled with cables. I mean, filled to the brim with cables. Like you had to sit on the thing to get it to close. So I go through security at JFK, and I had all of my clothes for like 5 days in my backpack because I was done with all of the... I didn't have any more space to pack a suitcase because all my carry-ons were just for cabling or to make the gig happen. So that should be another one, is how do you pack for like a week-long gig or whatever with just the clothes on your back kind of thing. The finer points of doing laundry in a hotel room. So JFK, absolutely, the security freaked out. And they're like, what is this? Pull this off to the side. I mean, it was like a weird flight in the afternoon. It was like 1 or 2 o'clock. There was nobody in security. And they flagged me down. And I was like trying to explain that the wires went to nothing. I mean, they weren't wired to anything. It was just a thing full of cables. And when we finally, I finally was able to communicate with JFK with that, I said, well, what set off the thing? And they just said it's a cable density warning. So if you have too many cables in your bag, that will set off a cable density warning. So they asked me, they're like, well, what else is in here? I'm like, well, just cables. So obviously the cable density warning was real because it was a Pelican 1510 purely filled with cables. So there's that. Oh God, I just remembered another JFK story. We were doing a gig in Seattle. That's right. And it was, again, we needed to record the show, and we figured out, and they had a Soundcraft VI something. It was when those consoles were new. It was a VI console, and like at that time, for those of you who don't remember, a lot of the bigger format digital consoles, you couldn't just hook a USB cable up to record. Like, Midas had its walled garden of things. You had to buy some rack mount thing that would, do A to D, and it was like not like today where everything's like a USB driver. I mean, this was not that long ago. It was probably 8 years ago, and it just is, an epoch shift in consoles. So in order to make that gig work, I had two racks. I had a rack with my Focusrite ISA 828s in it, so that was 4U. And then I had a 3U rack that had a Focusrite 8-channel preamp, and then it was two Motu interfaces, because that was my rig. And with that rig, I could do 26 channels. But for whatever reason, I had to bring a little baby Soundcraft mixer, which actually sits on my shop bench today. And JFK hated that. They absolutely hated that. And they're like, what is this thing? It's just a little 8-channel Soundcraft mixer. But, to those not in the audio industry, I mean, it's, you're bringing some insane thing. I said, it's an audio mixer. It basically it just splits audio together, and, it blends many sources together to, a very simple output. And the guy, because I had it in my clothes bag that I was carrying on. It wasn't even like it was a bunch of audio gear. I just, I didn't have a case for it, and I put it in my clothes bag. And they're like, well, why would you bring that on a plane? I'm like, well, I mean, I'm an audio engineer. I needed to take this for a gig that I'm doing. It just seems very stupid to bring that on a plane. It's like, okay, all right, bro. Not gonna argue with the geniuses of TSA. So anyway, that was that. I'm trying to think if there are any more. Oh man, I did a gig where I had to. It was a Cajon gig, where it was they could afford me, but it was in Orlando, actually. Speaking of Orlando, It was a cajon gig, and they wouldn't rent me a drum kit, but they would rent me a cajon. So they would pay me my rate to play drums, but they were like, we don't have budget to rent you a drum kit. And I was flying down from New York, and I managed to get. I'm like, all right. Well, they're like, well, we will rent you a cajon. I'm like, okay. Like, I'll pay for my own drum kit at this point. They're like, no, cajon. I'm like, okay. So whatever. I'm not gonna argue. You give me my day rate, I'll show up and look pretty. I don't have to do anything, as long as the check cashes. So I managed to get a collapsible cajon kick drum pedal that was like a cable thing, a 14 by 5.5 snare drum that I took the heads off of and packed everything in the center. I had this DW hi-hat stand that was whatever like the jazz one is, that's like it all folds up and it's super teeny tiny. I put my cymbals between clothes, and I made this like complete like drum kit thing work in like whatever, like it wasn't even a Pelican, it was just like a suitcase. I think there's pictures on my Instagram of that, actually. I was pretty proud of that, if you want to go back and do a deep dive on my Instagram page. But yeah, stuff on planes, man. I've carried a lot of stuff on planes that are odd. But anyway, I've probably rambled a little bit too long. Check back on LM's Instagram page. I'm sure I'll have a finished thing of my USB to True One. Oh, so I should say, self-promotion, shameless self-promotion, right? If you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is BillyLaGuardia.wave. Ha ha, so clever, right? Or you can check out LM_cases, which is LM, if you want to see the... sorry to tease you with this project. I kind of thought that I would have this done in 15 or so minutes, but I'm yakking and not paying attention. Anyway, let me know what you guys brought on a plane. I'm very curious. Maybe there'll be a part 2 to this video, but anyway, there's your shop talk for today. Catch you guys later. See ya.